Yo, what's going on, everyone? It's Brian and Jim here with Drink a Beer and Play a Game, and today we are going to be reviewing Tiny Tank for the PS1.
Yes, this possibly underrated classic comes to us as the Patreon review request from our buddy Nerdy Nick 91, also known as Hick Nick, the best promo in the business. We miss you, buddy. Come back to social media soon, but thank you so much for the support.
And thank you for picking a better game. Oh wait, no spoilers. Thank you for picking this game.
Let's get into it.
That's what she said.
Originally released in 1999, Tiny Tank was developed by Apologia Interactive and published by Sony Computer Entertainment America. It's a Sony PlayStation exclusive. So, the point of this game, you're a sentient tank, going on missions. That's pretty much it, but you get into wacky dialogue along the way. Let's get into it. So when it comes to graphics, this game is unfortunately really a product of its time. When you think about the 5th gen games, and especially the PlayStation, you're going to be thinking about some muddy to bland backgrounds, lack of color, texture warping, slowdown, variable frame rate, and unfortunately all of these problems are here. For being a game that was released from the mid to the late cycle of the PlayStation, it's really not that impressive looking, but there are some positives here. For one, there's a lot of those little touches, like when you go over the terrain, the tank's body will move up and down according to what part of it is. It isn't like the entire thing just tilts to the side. You'll see different expressions on Tiny's face as you turn him around to face different enemies. The tank guns will switch at direction, along the way you want it to and different from the camera direction. And for its time, the camera placement isn't that bad. But some of the levels are just way too dark than they need to be. There's just a total lack of character to a lot of the graphics, even though through the 25 levels, the levels are decently varied in how they're designed. One thing I really do like is the CG FMV cutscenes. The character behind Tiny really comes through here. But besides that, it's a late 90s PlayStation game. What are you going to do? So,
But Jim, you're forgetting one major part. You can get a big hat as Tiny. It's funny because it's a big hat.
It's funny because it's bigger than a normal size hat. Damn it. So, with that being said, it's still slightly above average, so we both gave it 6s. And when it comes to beer, I'm gonna give it 2 beers for the slowdown and for that really bad texture warping. The sound. This is actually a surprisingly good package. So, first thing I want to get into is the brightest spot, and that is the voice acting in this game. Because Tiny, his commander, the voices that you hear over the radio, it's just so well done and so, the quality of the voice acting here is so much better than it had any right to be for a no-name PlayStation game. The music in the game's pretty good too, and it's weird because it starts off as orchestral, like stuff you would expect to hear in like a 1943 war movie. I don't know if they used a lot of public domain music for it, but it seems like it was ripped right from that era. But then as you go further into the game, it almost breaks down into more techno music. Now, none of the compositions are mind-blowing, and it's nothing that you'll be humming after, but what you get is pretty solid. And you also, it's almost like reminds you of Fallout, how you have your little radio going, and you'll get like advertisements just randomly in the middle of levels, or just random speech that'll come from your CO over the radio to guide you where you're supposed to be going. It's all these little flashes and touches that, while it's nothing groundbreaking, it gives it enough charm, which we're going to be saying a lot about this game. So, I gave it a 6, and Brian gave it a 7. He just really loved the voice work and character in this game. And when it comes to beer, I'm going to give it just 1 happy beer for just being surprisingly better than it has any right to be.
The control. The first thing I'm going to say is, if you've ever played Star Fox 64, and you know how the tank controls in that, this is actually kind of similar, except you have a lot more maneuverability in this game. So, unfortunately, the one thing I will knock it for is you are stuck to the, up, down, left, right movement. However, with the shoulder buttons, you are able to strafe, and you can do loop rolls, and you can use your thrusters to move faster. Because you're stuck in that grid-like structure, it can be a little annoying to fight enemies, but the nice part of this game is a lot of your weapons automatically home in on them. So when it comes to actually firing your weapons, you're just holding down buttons, which I didn't realize at first with some of them you can turn them on and off, so I was pressing the button like a madman. And then when I realized, oh, you just hold it down, it saved my thumbs a lot of pain and a lot of anger. Outside of that, you actually can jump with him, and once again, using your boosters, you can jump a little higher. There are some areas that actually turn into almost a 3D platformer, and it is not done well. Your jumps have to be damn near perfect, and if you are off by a little bit, you have to restart like a whole series of jumps. It's a very common problem with 3D games, but it begs the question, even in a universe like this, why the hell do you have to jump as you're a tank? Like, it just shouldn't have been a thing. So, when it comes to scores, we both gave it 7s. It's not hard to master, and the fact that so many things are automated in a way saves you time and simplicity, but still, it's definitely not perfect. When it comes to beer, I'm just going to add 1 because I'm still not a fan, and I know it's not the game's fault, of the whole gridlock system of movement for these 3D tank games. Jim already mentioned this. This game has a ton of personality, and the story behind Teeny is kind of interesting. You found out he was developed along with a lot of other automated weapons from this group called Centrax, and surprise, surprise, they became sentient, and they destroyed most of the world, if not all of it, with very few humans hiding underground. This game takes place in the future, hundreds of years past when the events actually took place, and they're talking to Tiny. That's the easiest way I'm going to explain this, but as Jim already mentioned, the ultimate goal of this game is kind of a search and destroy in every level. There's a few other varying options where you may be kind of racing through loops, or you may be looking for a very specific item. But all in all, it's really just go through and destroy every enemy on the screen until you get to another larger enemy or a structure that you have to get rid of. Along the way with Teeny, you do have a lot of guns that you'll pick up from turrets and other enemies you beat, and they get automatically added onto your tank. Now there is a little bit of customization there, as you can change where the guns are placed, whether they're on your front, your main turret, or on the back. You'll find as the game goes on, certain guns are better against certain enemies, but at the end of the day, you're like so souped up, you're just kind of just bombarding enemies with mortars, with machine guns, with freeze cannons. It becomes absolutely crazy. And then the only other part of the arsenal you can update is when you find this nano metal, you can increase the strength of specific guns. So while it sounds like there's a lot of customization, this is one of them games where you laugh because you're like, I didn't even know there was that many guns in the game, because all I did was use kind of the base ones, and you can kind of get through a lot of the game without even realizing you could have unlocked a little bit more. All in all, it's not that original of a game, but it is a fun, semi-mindless shooter. So, while the game isn't bad, it's not memorable. Still, Jim and I, we had a lot of fun with it, so we both gave it 6s. When it comes to beer, I'm going to add 1, just because I love the fact they offer you 25 levels, but it wears on you so bad when you feel like you're doing the same thing over and over and over. It's like, enough is enough. They could have made this a 12-level game, and it might have even gotten more points from us.
Yeah, this game was definitely at its most fun when it was just more wide open. It was more about just the fast-paced, frenetic action. When it got a little too clever for its own good with switches and hunting stuff down, that's when it really started to bog down. So, keep it short, keep it simple, stupid. When it comes to originality, there isn't a ton here, but there are some bright spots. So, there are a decent amount of tank games from this era. Like, I guess it was just an easy way to start to implement 3D cameras and gameplay on home consoles. So, there isn't too much there, but it does get points from us in the fact that, for one, it's a sentient living tank with a good sense of humor, and there's a real emphasis, for better or for worse, on 3D platforming as a tank. Not quite as well as, say, Jumping Flash, but in a more arcadey shootery type. So, it's a weird little bird. but outside of that, you can't really go that crazy. I mean, there's customization, sure, but you see that in a ton of other games. So we decided to give it 4s. And when it comes to beer, I'm just going to add 1 beer for the possibly kind of pretty much unnecessary platforming.
The replayability I can keep short because while this game does have 25 levels and you would think it would be open for all kinds of secrets or endings, there isn't. It's really one ending, and at the end of the day, while you have a lot of different weapons, you could make the argument maybe we'll go through and try it with these weapons or this combination. But as I said, you get to a point when you don't really care what you have thrown on. As long as you have a weapon in every main turret spot, it doesn't really make a difference. It's a hold down and shoot and circle enemy type of game. So you're going to get the same experience over and over. However, this one is a little bit hard. You know, the first couple levels kind of trick you. You're like, this isn't bad. And then the difficulty really ramps up. And by level 25, if you're not on point with your shooting, with your movement and everything, you're going to keep struggling. So going back to that, we always give games like this a 3. And it's warranted here. You may want to come back for some of the laughters, but you're not getting a new experience anytime soon. So when it comes to beers, I got to add at least 3 beers here. And I know it seems like a lot, but honestly, once again, you're going to have 25 levels. You better have some secrets. You better have some different endings. You better offer me something that's worthwhile for me to come back and not just grind my way through all these levels. So overall, as you can see, Jim and I, we really do like this game, but we know it's not perfect. While it has plenty of personality and charm and the voice of Tiny is hilarious, there are just some things we really could not overlook.
Yeah, this is definitely one of those games that leaves like a good first impression, and then as you go deeper and deeper into it, the problems really start to come through, which is unfortunate. Well, like Bryce said, it's got charm for days, and it's got a humor that a lot of it won't fly today. Not super vulgar or anything, but just the tone of it. It could be problematic, but it's still like, it's one of those games that like, I'm just glad that we had a game to look at, because if it wasn't for Nick, we would have never even thought to look for a game like this. It's definitely interesting, so I'll give it that.
Yeah, whether it's a hidden gem or not would really depend on its price point. And, you know, I think I got the full complete for about $15. Not terrible, but I would say don't go out of your way to get this. It's fine if you never play it. You're not going to miss too much. But still, when it comes to scores, we gave it 6s. It is above average, and Jim and I are suckers for humor and well-written dialogue, and Tiny has a ton of that in this game.
Oh, yeah.
So when we combined all of our scores, it comes out to a 6.1. Like we said, it's on par with how we feel about the game. It's one of those ones I wish I would have played as a kid back in the day. Maybe I would have had more nostalgia for it, but I'm glad I finally got to try it at least.
Yep, definitely. If you come across it for cheap, definitely pick it up. Just don't spend too much on it.
Yeah, definitely. And with that, I want to say thank you guys for watching the review, and cheers.
Cheers, guys.
When it comes to beer pairing, I'm going to go with the Dank Tank Fresh Sticky Nugs Hazy Double IPA coming to us from Sweetwater Brewing Company. This bad boy comes in at 8% and packs a ton of citrus and hop flavors. When you're playing a game as silly as Tiny Tanks, I want a beer that really, you don't got to think about too much, but it's still going to pack a punch and have plenty of flavors. So if you can, grab yourself a 6-pack, sit back, and enjoy. And as always, remember to drink your beers and play your games responsibly. With that, I want to say thank you guys for watching once again. If you haven't already, please make sure you hit the subscribe button, hit the bell for notifications so you can see when all of our new videos come out. And you can always listen to us on our Power Hour podcast from iTunes or Spotify. Until next time, guys, cheers.